guy, Eric, is here. So we didn't get to present our idea first go around, so here it is. We have for computer and smartphone users who want their story to be remembered, Memorist is a recorder, organizer, and publisher for documenting your life. Unlike writing or scrapbooking apps, Memorist learns about you to help you compile, note, and share what is most important. So the idea here is that it's a piece of software, a mobile component that will let you accumulate all aspects of your life toward writing memoirs and or generally organizing projects. We're focusing on the memoir component as we begin. So, traction goal, we want to start with 100 users, develop it, and build it up from there. We're starting by focusing on veteran groups as an organized social group that has an interest in recording their own personal history.
I think it's important too, if everyone doesn't understand what we're talking about, on the back end, obviously, there's a question time, and now would be a good time too. Because really what we're talking about here is you have this convergence of all of these rapid fire communication technologies that are coming out now, but you have this entirely large group, millions of potential users of the technology that are sort of disenfranchised, that are really interested in sort of retrospectively looking back across their life and capturing some of those important moments, right? And we may all feel some of that ourselves right now. So that's really what this is about. And initially, as David mentioned, we're focusing on the veterans groups because these folks have a tremendous body of knowledge that, you know, David, I think you said it once best. You know, whenever someone passes away, an elderly person passes away, it's like burning down a library in our culture because we've done a lousy job of capturing that, right? So this is a mechanism that will allow that group to commence, but then to move through each similar type of affinity group, constantly moving from the folks that maybe have more assets and less time toward the younger generation that has more time and less to invest. So, you know, automating the service more and more as we progress. And what we learn to eventually going from just allowing people to capture their memories and share them to interconnecting with, you know, Library of Congress, a lot of the National Data Archives, and building our own archive so that, you know, folks can draw on these things as they're capturing these significant moments for themselves. And I'll give you an example. Just think about like the topic of 9/11. I mean, you could drive, you know, an ocean of commentary like into the site with that alone and all of the materials people could contribute. Thank you. So anyway, I mean, I think that that's a really important thing to establish the context of this because the rest is pretty straightforward. So excuse me for that.
Yeah, no, it's important. So through our own internal dialogue and some external conversations, we identified these 3 channels: unconventional public relations, affiliate programs, and direct email. Unconventional PR would be directly relating, for example, with veterans groups to get them interested in using the platform as a way to record their stories. Affiliate programs could be with things like Ancestry.com, and direct email would be reaching users directly. So these are some tests that we would like to do. Create a launch interest sign-up page for veterans to say, yeah, I'm interested in this, tell me more. Affiliates with things like Veterans, VFW, etc. And direct email by finding lists from good sources. It seemed to us that direct email was going to be the thing that would make the most sense. And I think that's the end of the slide here. So, we'll shut up. And, yeah.
So, cloud-based, right?
Yes.
Okay. How would you compare this to Facebook? Because I feel like a lot of people believe Facebook is cataloging their lives.
Well, I think that's a great point because they're really not cataloging their life. They're just giving you brief snippets of kind of what's going on. You know, there's a big difference between sort of a chronological timeline of like what you're up to and actually describing how you feel at the moment, what's going on at that moment.
More narrative-based.
Yeah, more narrative-based. Think about things like, you know, where you are, what the weather is like. You know, these are all things that are in Facebook, and one of our eventual goals would be for those things to be accumulated in the archive, right? So people can draw on their own kind of things to contribute some facts the memoir. But there's actually a very famous memoirist in Philadelphia at Penn. She's written a number of books, and she talks about the difference between an autobiography and a memoir. And she talks about memoir being retrospective and kind of not so much about every pinpoint fact, but more about how you perceive it after the fact. So that's really sort of what this is about. And it evokes a lot of emotions in users, at least from what we've heard earlier.
Can I ask why you started with 100 users?
Because we're older, except for Shenway, and I convinced him that a penny in planning is worth $5 on the showroom floor. If we can get it right with 100, then we can take it to a larger scale.
It seems like you could get, 100 people is a lot, but it's not that many. Particularly VFWs have like a large membership. And
Right.
I feel like it's a very interpersonal app. You might actually have, what was your reach out like? Were you talking to people in VFW veterans?
My father-in-law actually he ran the VFW in a part of New Jersey and was very active in the veterans community. So I've been talking with him initially about it. But like anything else, we're talking about the 6 days being short. It's really kind of tough to talk about this in the abstract.
Yeah.
They sort of need to have something that they can touch and feel, and that's why we thought maybe 100 was a reasonable number, because then we can onboard the feedback and improve the app, because we know the platform will need work early on. And we also know that these folks may not be quite as tech savvy as some.
It's not a bad plan. I think that you want to keep in mind the fact that you have leeway to saturate the market or the vertical that you're going after. So if you can get 1,000 users out of that, you might as well. And maybe if it's going to be unconventional PR or an affiliate program, those are things that you really don't have control over. It's just putting a lot of people to the top of the funnel and saying, I think they're going to fall out, or I think that they're going to be coming to the bottom. So in those cases, I don't think you're going to have a whole lot of control for those tests versus how many people you're going to get out of it. So you'd want to worry about the scale that you're operating at, the types of, if you're moving into a more mainstream market than your niche market, maybe affiliate programs on Ancestry.com are going to give you a broader base than the VFW alone, or just the Veterans Association. So in those cases, I think that you could actually do a person-to-person type thing and say, hey, go to a police station or a retirement home and say, hey, as a group, would you guys be interested in sharing memoirs together? And if that aspect of the product falls out now, hey, that's either not our target market or that it's not our target product. Maybe we just want the memoirs aspect, not the sharing aspect of it. You know what I mean? The interconnected piece of it.
That sounds great. What would you think, one of the things that we struggled with, and for the group too, but what would you think, we were talking about how to integrate telephony technology to allow folks that would have some interesting commentary maybe about something that had been written, or to initiate a piece of content for other people to comment on, because there's an awful lot of people that could contribute that aren't necessarily computers.
My own personal experience, it's a little weird to mix medium, so if they're going to be typing it out, maybe they don't want to leave a voice comment. But I mean, I think anybody would recommend using Twilio for that. You can pretty much hook up a phone call or text message through an API very easily. It seems more of a feature than it would be it seems like a one-off feature as opposed to the core concept for minimum viable product. So I wouldn't worry about that too much right now, but as you're exploring these things, if it makes your target audience easier, it makes it easier for them to latch onto the product, or if they're impaired in some way, it could be a stronger thing to do for them, and maybe it changes the whole dynamic. I think it's a little too early to flesh.
Okay, thank you.
Last question.
Which one?
Any, money,
I was just going to ask, have you looked at StoryCorps as a model for how to engage people? Have you looked at StoryCorps
Yes.
as a model for how to engage people?
Yeah. Thank you.
It could even be like a business development thing where you can partner with them.
Right. Yeah.
And we actually did one before. I mean, again, it's one of the things that we wanted to do in the 6 days. It's just tough, but no, thank you. I think this gentleman had a question. Did you have a question?
I was just going to ask if you had considered another target market because that particular demographic is maybe less tech savvy. Because you mentioned 9/11, which seemed like probably more of a broad group.
Yeah. We discussed it. I mean, one of the reasons is because we had some direct ties with the veterans groups. We to start with them, and also because there's so many events in their life that they want to reflect on. But that's a good point. There's a number of channels that you could go down.
And also, you start out with a group like 9/11 survivors. I personally was kind of worried, like, you mess up with the 9/11 people in some way, and like, super sensitive socially.
Might be too soon.
Maybe, yeah, like once we kind of have clear like what we're doing.
When we were talking about this is the reason I mentioned 9/11. I mean, when we were talking about like an event, and it was like, wow, you know, what if one of the team members said this? Wow. I didn't. Someone else had a question in the back, I think. Oh, we got
All right, gang. We are Team Video. We are half of Team Video, actually. One of our members is in London. The other one has food poisoning. But anyway, our goal is to disrupt traditional advertising using gamification, interaction, and incentive. Where is it? Oh. There we are. This is the best we can do.
Okay, for our attraction methods, to be able to feed ourselves a little bit above top ramen noodles, we're going to pay ourselves $2,000 a month per person. That's for 4 of us. We're going to pay $2,000 a month for marketing and $2,500 for development per month. And in order for us to break even, that means we have to be able to generate $12,500. So for 600, it's cut off, but for $625 per customer that we'll get, we'll have to get 20 customers in order to break even. And if we're being a little bit more optimistic, we're going to try to get 24 customers so that we don't have to work at Starbucks. So that's 20 customers is our goal for $12,500.
We went through all the traction channels. We came up with business development, affiliate programs, and targeted blogs as our top 3. Our business development plan was to host an initial beta round at a steep discount for smaller clients, use that information for marketing in the future. Our affiliate program model was based on reselling our product to larger companies so they can make a profit and we can make a profit. And our targeted blog concept was based on using local blogs and just other popular tech blogs and marketing blogs to promote our idea.
For our testing, a lot of it was done through the use of internet. So the first 2, for our business development, we figured that a beta program would be very successful in creating an initial portfolio and finding glitches in that platform. And for our affiliate programs, we would want to target local marketing companies.
But we didn't really have too much time to test these ideas out.
So again, using the internet, we realized that it will provide a positive outlook for profit and shared models that will benefit both the parties. And for our targeted blogs, we started a blog called Mad Video Blog, and we were able to gain a little bit of traction from that, but this takes time. So with the full social media campaign and email marketing, the blog could generate high qualities.
All right, our silver bullet, we decided, despite the fact that we were actually able to test out the blog, was the pilot program concept, where we would launch the program to smaller companies at a steeply discounted rate, get metrics, a small amount of cash, and just overall statistics that we could sell our product with in the future, and that's where we want to start. Yes.
Do you have a niche where you feel like you can be really strong?
In terms of our verticals? Not specifically, no. No, we went through and we filled them all out and had a bunch of different ideas. There wasn't one that really exploded in any unique way. These are kind of standard models in my mind of ways to market.
I'm just wondering, I mean, something like tech startup or maybe pharma tech startups or right? Like
an industry.
You feel like you have a really sweet spot to start?
We haven't decided on an industry yet, but that's an interesting point. I guess my question is, the top piece is the business development piece. Your initial numbers, I'm going to try to focus this as much on the verticals here. Your your initial numbers were to get 20 to 24 initial users. So how does the end up at business development? How do you project that you're going to get 24 users from business development program? Not
Sorry,
including
please, we got.
Oh, sorry. I'm asking him how he's projecting getting 20 to 24 users using that vertical, and where we got those, like, if that's going to actually accomplish his goals. I imagine you guys didn't get plenty of time to test this. Business development cycles are sometimes weeks or months, years long, so it might take a while.
Yeah, obviously a great question. We figured that our best vertical wasn't our first vertical, and our first vertical was going to be a lot of boots on the ground and getting just a few initial users, after which we could use our best vertical to do more of an explosive growth.
So more specifically, if you were starting this and you said, hey, what's my vertical going to be? Your boots on the ground vertical is the actual first one.
Okay.
That's the one that you're starting on to get those initial users, because it seems it's heavily focused on getting this marketing data, which you're going to use in the future. But if it is so early, it's kind of a toss-up if that's going to be useful to you. Conversion rates, etc. I mean, if you're going after core demographic data, I think you're going to want to start with a very particular business development, so like the VFW Association. There's a particular, there's a reason to do that. It's got local ties, maybe that increases his odds. But you sort of need to get real numbers behind it and say, okay, the $625, how many people are realistically going to sign up for that? How many businesses can I identify that are looking for a competing product? Is it their time, sort of contract up? Is there any publicly available information about that? So you could actually put some numbers behind that, and it might be a stronger beginning than just boots on the ground, getting a couple, and then looking for the next piece. So it's back to the original concept. Are you saturating your initial test base? And could you, with a little bit more effort, get a lot more saturation out of it and move into a more mainstream market? Makes sense?
Yeah.
I actually didn't. Does anybody mind? I didn't hear the concept of the idea from last week.
Yeah, so video focuses on using gamification and incentives in advertising. A great example is when you watch video on YouTube or Hulu, you're stuck with an ad that you have to wait through, and changing that to something interactive that could expedite the process of the advertisement while also getting information for the advertiser.
And why don't you think affiliate programs would work?
We do.
That's not your silver bullet.
Based on my experience, in order to get clients of that size, you need to have a little bit more of a portfolio to move forward.
Yes or no? I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be, if it's a test market for vertical, it doesn't need to be a huge, it doesn't need to be IBM.
That's true.
It could be, you could say, hey, use this for free if you're looking for it. You could post it.
YouTube and Facebook, one of our verticals that we decided to go against was, using large social media platforms, which is obviously tons of ads in, but it was way too far of a leap. But I think you're right, we could capitalize on smaller outlets.
Yeah.
What about patents? Can we get a patent to patent this kind of interaction with users in internet advertising?
A patent for the product?
For interacting with users in a way where marketers collect data from the users on behalf of their.
So you're asking generally not as a traction market, just should you get a patent? You get a patent.
Well, I mean, this could be a very viable patent if you could possibly secure it.
It is, I mean, the general advice anybody has ever given me or I've ever seen given on patents is you're going to get sued anyway. If somebody really wants to sue you for it, you're going to get sued.
Yeah, but could they get a patent and then sue other people who do that?
No. I mean, the patent law is super obscure as it is. I'm not advising you don't get a patent, or maybe you
I
can
don't
get a
agree
patent.
with patent laws.
But you're going to end up paying at least from $5,000 to $15,000 a patent if you really want a decent one. You're going to need to find a very specific person who's, a startup patent lawyer in the video space who can actually write all the things. And in the end, you're going to get sued anyway. It's how defensible is your product. I don't think you should be on the offensive as a startup saying, I'm going to sit on a patent, wait for somebody to come along with a similar idea. It just doesn't work. It's a whole nother business. But you could do a patent. You might need it.
Yeah, you can get a provisional patent, it's dirt cheap, and it'll help your sales a little bit, and then when it expires after a year, just like that.
He already has one.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Well, technically, when you do a proof of concept and there's a date stamp on it, you have a 1-year window to get a provisional patent. So if you like email yourself, what a provisional patent is a layman's term description of the patent, so it's usually like a paragraph long, 2 paragraphs. You could email that to yourself, and that will serve as proof of concept, which gives you 1 year to file your provisional patent, which then gives you 1 year to do the actual patent. So I think everybody's kind of hooked in.
Send this to me later. Any other questions? We're probably out of time.
Yeah.
Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Anne. This is Charlie. This is Ernie. And along with Sharon and Raj, who aren't here with us today, we're Team DuckDuckGo. And today we'll be sharing about instant staff and a little bit of the groundwork that we've been laying to get traction. So what is instant staff? It's for people who need an efficient way to fill open work shifts. Instant staff, it connects available workers with open work shifts. So this is unlike the tedious process of trying to manually schedule workers, either via phone calls where you're playing phone tag, it's getting lost in voicemails, or you're just not able to reach somebody, or physical sign-up sheets where you're kind of at the mercy of whoever walks by and sees it. Instant staff, it instantly alerts workers to any available and open work shifts. And this saves time, money, and headache. So a little bit of the context of how we settled on the idea. Initially, it was Instant RN, where Ernie and his wife, who is an RN, she spends a massive amount of time trying to chase nurses to fill these open work shifts, losing a lot of money because if they can't find somebody, they have to hire an outside nurse just to fill their shift. And it takes a lot of time away from her other duties. So specifically, we're going to start out targeting hospitals and RNs. It's a huge market. There's a lot of articulable pain points, and the inefficiencies are costly, and it's systemic. It's not like a one-time thing. These nurses are dealing with this every day, day in, day out. So our traction goal is 200 RNs for 2 hospitals, within a 3-month period. And now I'll pass on to Charlie, who will discuss specifically our traction channels.
Sure. So we were very excited about the idea, the fact that while it would work very well for serving Ernie's wife's needs in the hospital with scheduling, there's certainly a great revenue opportunity there. There's so many different verticals that need staffing, and it is a common problem for schedulers where they do have people that are calling out, or they do have trouble making the actual schedule. So we see that it could be something that could be done in retail, in hospitality, as well as in healthcare. So we went through the traction tactics and looked through all the various different channels that we can do, and it's funny how that sometimes scales. We came up with our short list, looking at potentially either using it for PR or for content, creating a survey that would allow us to be able to have some information as well as reach potential customers. Another area that we were doing, that is an offline ad by placing flyers into break rooms where scheduling problems are also often happening. We could reach potential customers. And then lastly, we were doing a coffee social. So those were the 3 that we came up with. We did actually develop a 10-question survey. We were going through the process of making a flyer and planning a coffee social. And one of the things that we feel very happy about is that we were able to conduct some tests. So I'm going to pass it on.
So we created a survey with the 10 questions, and my wife was actually able to present this to her fellow schedulers at the hospital where she works. There are 7 people who schedule, so we got 6 replies back, which was pretty good. And it's rather interesting. It kind of both validates and surprises at the same time. What we discovered was they spend 25% of their time scheduling and chasing down people. Their span of control, they contact generally 41.6 people to fill these empty shifts. They're trying to fill 11 open shifts a week. And they're going to outside agency nurses for 4.8 shifts a day. Interestingly, and good for the idea, is that all 6 of them said that if we had a reliable and cost-effective solution, they would use it.
Yes, we felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, so
Questions?
First of all, awesome that you were actually able to get out and do that testing. So I feel like there are 2 traction issues that you have though. So there's the traction issues you're getting the nurses, and then there's the traction issues you sell the product.
Correct. We had a number of discussions about the differences between the schedulers and their challenges, which is often inside the organization, as well as the staffers that we want to be able to reach out and communicate to. And that can be a problem for an organization if it's a barrier. So we were looking at how can we make the tool a collaborative tool that would allow even an ad hoc set of people who are having trouble with scheduling try this amongst themselves without necessarily even having to have the full organization committed to the platform. So it's something we discussed. I don't know if that answers your question.
So, well, for example, if you're in one hospital and everybody signs up,
right,
then the RN's already certified to work at that hospital.
Correct.
Which is fine. But if you're getting multiple organizations involved, then you need to sell product. You actually have to get hospitals involved. And you want to work with more than one hospital.
Right. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a hospital or, you know, even in retail at a Walmart, the people that are potentially going to be coming to fill a shift that was open have to be known to the organization. Nobody's going to walk off the street and go to the operating room to help out. What you're going to find is that there may be somebody at the Walmart, you know, across town who could fill a shift in this store, or an RN at one of the you know, hospital network locations that could pick up a shift that might not have obviously been done on the standard sign-up sheet that's just in the break room.
I asked the question kind of incorrectly. So you have to get the nurses, but they're not going to be paying. The hospitals are paying. So you have to have traction channels to get the hospitals, right?
Correct. There's a user base that you need to be able to grow in order to make that happen. And then there's the challenge of growing the revenue and monetizing the product as well. And we have talked about that. There's a lot of ideas that our team has had around how we do that, but we're looking at just growing our user base as fast as possible first in order to be able to leverage and show organizations the interest and the benefits from it. And as you know, we're all testing these ideas out, so we're going to see what works.
it was also an interesting way to point toward your MVP, because we learned new pain points, and we gave on the flyer, you would identify your 3 worst pain points, and some of them are common and some are not. But it helps with identifying a true pain point.
So I may have missed it, but what ended up being your highest value traction vertical?
Well, we focused very short term because we wanted to come into the class and say that we were able to test something within just a very short amount of time. I don't know if a survey, is the most well-performing vertical over the long term.
I think it's definitely good for collecting data, and it's also good as a primer if you're actually going to go get them to sign up, because they've already seen it once, they don't have emotionally invested into this feedback that they probably feel is incorporated. But particularly looking for how the numbers that you're working with, I think he brought up a good point. You have this unique issue, which also can play in your favor, where you have to get people to use the product, you also have to get people to buy the product. So purchasing is obviously on the hospital side, using it is on the hospital and the RN side, or whoever the employees. But in most of these cases, you're working with large companies or places that have very integrated processes, and you're going to have to, if the hospital adopts it, they're probably going to force that anybody that contracts through them or does these, these shift fills, they have to use that app. That's the best case scenario, is that it's a top-down. If they're using it, everybody below it has to use it. It's kind of the benefit of employing people that are currently applicable. I think it would be more interesting, just the one question at the end there was a red flag to me because you worded it would you use a much cheaper and better service? Yeah, I'd love to use a much cheaper and better service. But do you actually know what it is about their current model that's preventing them from moving to a different model? It's not so much a traction question as it is a who's your market question. I think the RN vertical is actually very good. It doesn't sound, I don't know anything about the regulatory issue there, but it doesn't sound like there are any major barriers for them using an external service. So if you've got in with even one hospital that's doing that, they have a network of nurses that they're obviously pulling in 5 positions or 5 shifts a day. They're coming from other places, they're obviously qualified people, so you're going to build a natural network. If you could get into one hospital, say, what would be your projected numbers? And it's saying that one hospital is my best traction vertical right now. It's going to cover 76 nurses and 5 shift fills. So
there's also you look at like Blackboard versus Moodle kind of approach, like in terms of you're trying to service the teachers, you can sell the school, where you get the costs. Moodle went top down, Blackboard went to the teachers. They figured that was the way to be led, and then they get the schools that are paying for it. Once the teachers try to get new features, they go in and get the budget, so they become your sellers, not you. There's 2. I always would be interested in try to take one and see which one bites first.
Right. There's an opportunity to do a freemium model there too, even if you continue down that line of thinking, because you can always offer a basic set of services for free, where when the enterprise gets involved, you could empower that with a whole set of additional features.
Do you have any information from your survey on the nurses side? Like, would this be helpful to the nurses if you sell this to nurses as a way to, make sure you're picking up enough shifts to,
We discussed a survey for that vertical, but we didn't make it that far.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
We focused on the schedule.
So the idea is called DINK. Have you ever heard of the word DINK?
yes.
Yes, great. So basically dual income, no kids couples, and one of the problems that we saw talking to a couple was that at a certain age, a lot of their friends start having kids and they're less fun to hang out with, and they realized that it's kind of hard to find like-minded people like them. So we came up with the idea of DINK, which is basically grouper for DINK couples. So how do we get these people together? So here's our landing page. It's basically, you and your partner sign up online through our website, answer a few questions about yourself, and then we'll do a little bit of matching. We set you up at a bar or an activity or a restaurant, get you together, and then ideally enjoy a fun night out with couples who don't vicariously live through their kids. And we bought a pretty stock photo for this, so it's very legit. And so it's just a simple landing page. You just enter in your email, get started, and then it automatically emails you, kind of like we're coming soon. Faked it. Can you go to the presentation, please? Next slide.
Right. So we agreed we needed a little more guidance on coming up with traction goals, but at least for this goal, the way we went about it is we said, what do we need? Like, what user base do we need to be able to actually survive and run this full time, like quit our jobs and actually have enough money for like 4 of us to work on it, and some like extra for marketing and other business expenses. And so we just sort of calculated that based on just some guesstimates, and came up that we needed 16,000 couples over the course of a year, so 16,000 outings, so to speak. So that was tracking goal. 16,000 couples, and what does it take to get there? Next slide.
These were our top 3 traction channels. Social and display ads through like Facebook or Google or any sites where there's like targeted advertising like that. Direct sales, so basically just trying to find couples and get them on the site. I think that would be an important one early on. And then affiliate programs, so working with like bars and restaurants, and because that's sort of how Google works. Like they get Plus. And Dig Plus.
Dig Plus was like, if you're a couple and you can get 2 couples on board to join your Dig group, yours is free.
You get like a credit. Yeah. So basically, kind of like business development.
It's just swing our ass get some credit. I love it.
We're not competing with Swingle. Let's make that very clear.
Swingle.com doesn't exist. Found that out in the process.
Next slide, please.
Okay, so we tested the social and display ads one merely because it was doable in 2 days, because we started doing this on Saturday. So we made the landing page, which you guys saw, include that sign-up form, and hopefully anybody would sign up. We ran a Facebook advertising campaign, so we did a little over 32 hours, yeah. So that the potential audience was quite big. We targeted people who listed they lived in Philadelphia to start with, just locally. The age range we said around 28, based on a couple of couples that we talked to, was when they realized that, hey, a couple of my friends are starting to get kids, and all the way up to 46. So you can also sort by relationship status. So we said in a relationship, married, engaged, so we can domestic partnership or open relationship. And the next one, there's the ad, just photoshopped.
To our landing page, and then if you signed up, your email just went to Ryan's email address, basically. We were trying to set up like a like the Google Docs API, and then Ryan was like cursing up a storm, and I was like, just send it to your email, and he was like, okay. So
next slide.
Yeah, so the results, about 5,000 people saw it, and only 34 people clicked, resulting in very expensive clicks and in very, very expensive email. Very expensive. I had to check, like, do you guys know this person? No one did, so we got one email.
So we got one. So clearly, this is not a good tracking channel.
What was this guy's name? Hannibal Lecter?
it was so weird. I think it was a woman.
But we confirmed none of us.
Yeah, so it's like the most expensive vehicle.
Technically, it's 2 people. Yeah. All you need is that, right?
Twice as well.
Yeah. So yeah, not the best traction channel, clearly, but yeah.
But after only 2 days, I mean, what was your expectation?
We just
We
wanted
had
this,
none.
like, yeah, it was like, let's just throw this up and see what happens and stuff. Like, maybe we can, like, stretch the data, like, you know, but I think that it was probably too short of or too small of a sample, but just for the sake of, like, doing a test, none of us have ever actually really, like, launched something or tested it, so it was just like, let's just do it.
Yeah,
it's not
and
that expensive.
There's so many variables with a Facebook ad. Like, how do you make the right Facebook ad? Like, we're not BuzzFeed. Like, we don't know all the best marketing tactics to come up with a headline that's clickable, or an image that's like clickable, or how much text you put on the image to get somebody to actually click into your site. Then this is the first landing page that most of us have made. So we said, okay, like, how do you make it legit enough that somebody's willing to give you their email? Ours is probably not legit enough to look. Like, we don't even have a footer on the bottom that really says a company name. So like, if I were to go on it, maybe I'd be skeptical to put my email on there. Right? Yeah. So there's a lot of factors for why we didn't get emails. Or it's a terrible idea.
Is the cost per click especially high?
I don't think that's especially high.
I mean,
I've ran ads before.
I think when you're at, especially when you're at art scale, like,
especially on scale.
Yeah,
I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's that bad. I really don't. I think I have a question of why you chose Facebook for all the targeted ads that you could do. Is it because of the granularity that you can get out of?
Well, we're going to spend a lot of money, so we're to pick someplace. I did Facebook ads before for other things, so I just had the account set up.
We pitched in $10 each, and we said this is doable in 2 days. So
yeah,
we just wanted to show a test. That was it.
Yeah, it's tricky. That in particular, the creative that you're using, like that ad, it's almost funny. I mean, it is funny because the pictures, like, they're having the best time ever.
Right, you want to go?
The premise is that it's because there are no kids there. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah.
No kids.
Yeah, it's like cheers to life, right?
So if it is a serious thing, and this isn't going to help you very much with your numbers, but the tone that they're landing on might have been too jocular. Right?
It could have been.
This could be a spoof site, I don't know. The social proof that you would have with maybe one person's quote about using the app, or the social proof having a privacy policy, might help. You might get more sign-ups, you might get more click-throughs based on the ad. But in particular, you asked about how do you make a good headline. there's a concept called an empathy map that has you answer a few questions about basically the way that your customer would answer these questions. What is, how am I feeling right now as I'm exploring the product? Basically make a graph, just a matrix, that gives you the type of verbiage and things that your audience is particularly looking for in that moment. So if it's the product that you're trying to sell, or if it's an upgrade, to your product, or if they have to do some secondary download, you can basically make an empathy map for everything. People use them, I find them helpful, but I would check them out.
So what do you think would be some keywords that would come from like the landing page? I'm just curious.
I'm not sure. I'm not super familiar with the market. The thing that was interesting to me was the age range, 28 to 47.
Yeah.
Does the product also apply to people who are empty nesters? If so, would you limit it to that? So you would say people that are above 46, probably extremely high chance because nobody, bother. They don't have the obligation of kids, but
Right.
still kids. Does it apply to them? You could maybe even get twice the amount of that. Just from
the market grows like much more than that. Just off that good point.
For the particular headline, I don't know, but I would be happy to send out the afterwards.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting. And what were your two other? You had
sales and affiliate programs.
So the sales in particular, what is that? Did you run any numbers on that?
No.
We talked to some couples, but it was like 10 couples.
Yeah, probably. It's of course a weekend when I would just run into people that I knew, or I would talk to people. Obviously it's biased. I tell them about an idea and they go, "Oh, it sounds great." Like, I would definitely do that. It's really hard to say since I know these people.
The affiliate program was interesting to me. Obviously, Dropbox had a ton of success with affiliate marketing. Is it a paid app?
What's that?
Is it a paid app?
Yeah.
To start?
So the couples theoretically, I think would pay
$25.
Yeah, like $25 per couple, and then we set up the time, location, first round of drinks or whatever, and then whatever's left over would be like our profit.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the grouper model. And the affiliate in general would be you buy your entry into it, and then if you can get 2 people to join you, then yours goes free.
Yeah, sharing rates, it's really interesting.
Right, that's 4 people you bring on the platform.
You can figure out your net promoter score and your final growth numbers.
Exactly.
It's really, that's a good channel to go down if you're thinking about it correctly.
So that was one that, of course, for that we need users, so we couldn't test it, but we thought that would be an interesting one to get your part of it.
The affiliate, so I don't know what the company's called, but I know that if you ever get married, you're like stalked throughout when they think your pattern of, so you engage, you start looking at pictures, then they're sending you emails about getting married, and then immediately after the date you've put in, you start getting emails about buying a house, and then like 6 months later, you get emails about from the bump about kids. So I feel like they would be a great, because they're already like doing that, and then this would fit in somewhere in their, but not.com.
Oh, it's like KN actually.
KN.
I got you. Okay, so business development, there you go.
PR too, in terms of like targeting blogs, especially right now, like you're saying, like the customer, like the kind of trust that they would have in it. If the blog is allowed, that piece is allowed to tell a story around the products. If you could get a couple and then match that with the blog posts,
that would be really cool.
You get those audiences because we could find female or male bloggers and like anything.
Yeah, and then they write
stories are right because it's honest. Everyone laughed every time you see it. Like, it's an entertaining piece.
That's the cool thing is that people that do want this product want it to be serious. You know what I mean? So you can be that person. You can be the rap genius of this. You can be if you've seen the Pornhub advertising campaign like that unconventional PR. I think was actually working for you guys just because the nature of the product is pretty good. But that is so hit or miss in terms of the drivers behind that.
Yeah. What about like real estate agents and realty companies? Because I can tell you these empty nesters you're talking about, right? Going back, for instance, from the burbs back into the city. I mean, look at all the building going on, right? Somebody's got to be buying it, right? So, I mean, I would definitely see the real estate guys because they're seeing exactly what he was talking about, and they're a little older than 46, but they have the income. They have the desire to get together. They've been in the burbs, isolated, coming back into the city, most of them lived in the city when they were young, so they have different ideas about what actually will happen. It's their right group to hit.
The other piece, just real fast, was that it's not necessary that they are engaged or identified as in a relationship on Facebook to be a dual income couple. Some people, especially as you get up in the age bracket, they're not going on to Facebook to their relationship status. So I think if you play with those numbers a little bit more, you guys can flesh out where you're at, who is actually your target user.
Yeah, exactly. And in the end, like, all these people haven't spent more than enough. That's kind of the nice part of it. So there's a lot of different kinds of users. It's good.
Yeah, so, yeah. Do you accept that?
Okay, so we are talking about Found Local, and it's basically a curated furniture marketplace for people who prefer well-made or handcrafted furniture and kind of a vintage look over what you find in a big box store. They're not quite at the museum quality price point yet. So it makes it easy to find really good furniture that fits your aesthetic in your local area.
So the traction goal, we said, so we looked a lot at competitors or people who are sort of in the space but doing different things. There are a lot of competitors that are doing very high-end stuff, and then One Kings Lane is the example, and also this other company, Cherish. But One Kings Lane, there's a lot of information on when they got funding, how they were getting users at that time. So we sort of based it off, well, we very much based it off of them. They had 5,000 subscribers, and then they sent out, I guess they sponsored they got in Daily Candy, which is a deals email, and then from then in a few days got 25,000, and got funding right after that. So, so we said 5,000 people giving us their email address saying that they would buy furniture if it was available this way, and then 50. To be honest, that's like it was kind of hard to come up with that number. It depends on how engaged they are, how many things they're posting to the site. So if you had 25 really, and this is just to get started, 25 people who are posting a lot of really good stuff often, that might be enough. That was one of the challenges, is like the two-sided market, figuring out where to focus first. So if the vendors want users first, then would you start there, but then the users want to see furniture. So that was, anyway.
So we had a lot of discussion about what channels would work best. We came up with these were our top 3. So on the vendor side, focus on sales, direct sales to the local vendors, and we would get them to agree to let us be their internet portal. Basically, a lot of the vendors have lots of great foot traffic or word of mouth, but they don't have an internet presence. So we would take that on for them. The second one, viral marketing by Pinterest. So our research showed that a lot of people, when they're starting out looking for something, they don't even know the search terms really. So they start by Googling images, and so Pinterest is a really valuable tool for us to attract interested buyers by posting. Not only can we define our brand, but we can drive users from Pinterest through to our website to actually purchase.
So we did a couple interviews, like just talk to people about how they go about finding furniture, people who had just purchased homes or are in our sort of target age group, and that's also how we came up with Pinterest, because they were saying they go for inspiration and they click around, click through to a blog, figure out, and then like dig into the photos to figure out where from the blog they got the furniture. Also, Pinterest is doing a lot with like we learned business accounts and being able to use it to so
actually understand your customer better and then bring in a target and market to them. And then also community building. Again, I mean, this is like a kind of a niche market. I don't think it's exclusive to this local area, but definitely we're thinking of a certain type of consumer, and so we would also hope to provide a forum for them to, learn more about the vendors, learn more about this, type of furniture, and create a community. And so community building, I think, will be a really important channel for us. Do you want to talk about the
Sure.
Yeah.
So what we did is, we have a landing page with a subscribe thing on it and one testimonial from the vendor. And then we put a Pinterest board on it, like inspiration, and then set up a Pinterest board called Found Local Style, and pinned a bunch of stuff, added our URL to it, and also started trying to use their map feature and actually pin businesses we want to be vendors. So we would, even if it wasn't their furniture, we would just like say, you could definitely find this at whatever. So that so the idea is that we're going to do that. We're going to see how many people actually click on the link to Found Local, because one of the problems is so much of the furniture, so many of these images come from blogs, and people click through the blog, so I don't know if they click on a link if you put it there. So we're just going to track that over the next couple weeks and see if people actually sign up to learn more on the site. Yeah. And we don't, and then it's very sheepish. We don't have, maybe we do now, we could check, but yeah. Yeah. So.
What's the idea? The first thing that came to mind was Etsy. Not as a similar idea, but their traction vertical, the traction vertical that really skyrocketed them were local meetups, and they had basically these handmade, people that are making these handmade goods, and they had people who wanted to buy them. They said, well, these people that are making handmade goods probably they want a local presence, or they want to expand their business and learn from other shop owners. So they said, let's do Etsy meetups. So they started Etsy meetups, and they basically are these giant, craft conventions, but they started out very small, with a few people. And they said, hey, you're a vendor, you want to come learn from us? We're going to sponsor, we'll have food and drinks. It's a very minimum cost, at least for that. But they would all come together, make their goods, and then they would say, hey, here's how you set it up on Etsy. And this is we're going to teach you how to optimize your Etsy site, we're going to teach you how to drive traffic, They did all of the expensive pieces of it. And then at the end of it, they had a bunch of engaged users that were coming back because they were finding buyers there, and they were learning how to use the platform. So if you guys thought about using the local piece at all, or have you, do any number, let me ask this, what numbers do you have that you can work with?
In terms of?
Anything local, or any of the vendors that you reached out to, you said you wanted 50 or 25 active vendors that were posting?
Yeah.
So do you know, in particular, if they have a channel right now, like a Facebook page?
Yeah, Facebook is the most common, and a lot of them go to flea market, like upscale flea markets. The people because there are all these different types of vendors, and I realized pretty quickly that the older people with a bunch of stuff, they're just not interested in going this way, but there are a lot of younger people out there doing this now, so they're using Facebook primarily. And I noticed there was one woman who's in this area who people are into, she does mid-century stuff, and she's been complaining on Facebook a lot, Facebook changed their policies and now I can't get the same. So I thought, oh, this would be good. And they do kind of know each other. Certainly they know each other. So it could be cool to do an event like that.
Is it a bit of a red flag that they're using the same traction verticals that you're trying to go after? I think it might be a little bit saturated.
So they're using, so they're on Pinterest trying to get business for themselves. Some of them are, not all of them, because they're always a little bit behind, or many of them are a little bit behind. So I was wondering if we could somehow say, hey, look, you don't have to worry about learning Pinterest. We'll do it for you.
Okay.
But yeah, so that is definitely a concern that they're going to say we can do it ourselves.
And I think part of our strategy is to build our own brand and then be kind of an intermediary. So people would look at us as just, a good place to start looking if you're interested in this aesthetic. So, it would be for a lot of people who, may be a little bit more internet savvy, they may still want to use us, and for people who aren't internet savvy at all and really just, need that type of support, we could.
You said two things, or one thing that I think was interesting. You don't exactly have a you don't have numbers to work with, but you could say, just think about it this way. If you set up a Pinterest account and you're saying, I'm going to set up Pinterest with the eventual goal of attracting users, you have to imagine that every filter they have to go through is going to chop out like 90% of them. So if they're coming from Pinterest and you're starting out with 100 people that are viewing the pins and maybe like 5 of them, you're going to get 10 clicks to your page where you're hosting their furniture, and then they're going to either go off to the vendor's site and purchase it through your site or not. And in that case, it's going to be another, it's going to be 10% of that 10%. So you want to, I was talking about this earlier, there's the viral loop, and the big thing in the viral loop is get your customer to learn about your product, then they become a user, and then they go off and they advocate to somebody else, hey, you should use this product, and then they become a user, and that's where the cycle starts. And they've done all these studies that how do you get the best viral marketing coefficient and all this stuff. And they found that the biggest impact that you can have on viral marketing in general or getting things to spread is not so much how many people you're telling at the very top of the funnel, it's not how many people are converting, it is reducing the amount of time it takes for somebody to hear about your product and for them to become a user. And then for that process to repeat. So if you can say, hey, this is our product, or this is somebody else's product, you can buy it from us right now, that might serve you better than having people go through Pinterest, then to your product page, and you know what I mean?
It's hard, it's so hard. Where we keep getting stuck is that we don't have the furniture on there yet. So, but we want to be able to go to the vendors and say that there are people who want to, so it's like this weird loop we're stuck in, like, oh, we shouldn't go to them until we have emails and we can tell them,
Just go.
Yeah.
Seriously, don't wait for it. You could set up a fake, you could duplicate your website, set up a fake
Yeah, and I don't
fake
think so last time I went around, they're like, yeah, whenever but I don't think they know if it's real. I don't want to scam people, but I don't think it would take much, kind of scam them.
If we had like the basic infrastructure, we could go and market it to the vendors and get them to sign up and then.
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need a formal agreement in place to say, hey, these are the actual terms that we're going to sell, but I think the best thing you can do is to say, hey, we just need some people to test with, we'll give it to you for free. We'll manage your account for like 2 weeks. Give us 5 pieces of furniture that are moving well, and it's not for anything other than to know whether that number is going to work for you. If 5 pieces of furniture is enough, or if 1 vendor is enough, and what that scales to.
Yeah.
I think you could find somebody who needs a web presence like that. And the other thing I was going to say is to not so much think about the traction verticals as places that you need to invest from the beginning until the end of time, but more so as the avenue that's going to get you to the city that you need to be. And you want a bunch of cities and a bunch of avenues going into a big city. I see a lot of these presentations have a projected runway. This is how much money that we need. But it's tied, it seems mentally tied, not so much to these traction numbers, mentally tied to like how long we're going to live as a company or how much money we need to get traction. And they're 2 separate things. The runway that you have is your burn. It's essentially when you're going to run out of money is your traction runway, your runway of cash minus how much cash you're burning. So the traction piece should be independent from that when you're thinking about it. You can do most of these things for less than $500. At Facebook ads, like a $30 test. You get a $100 test, you might get a little bit more information. But most of these things are very cheap. In the case of the bio products thing, that's hard. In the case of things that take a whole lot of time, but because of business cycle or because we need to reach out to people, those are separate costs. But I would think, in general, I would say think a little bit smaller. I think everyone assumes that a small sample size is a really bad thing, but it's not. Sometimes it's very telling, and you can say, hey, this is a complete flop, I just went there. But in general, you can think that every single person that's doing a startup doesn't have any money, and they're all working 40 hours a week or more, but they're all doing it. And they're doing it with these very opportunistic micro tests. And just because you can't afford a $10,000 Facebook campaign right now doesn't mean you can't try a $10 test and then move $100 over to doing, what's that new one? Ello? The private site Ello. Yeah. Move over to Ello. But try. Oh wait, they don't have that. But yeah, I think there seems to be a tone where you're afraid that you're not going to have enough money to properly test things, and that's absolutely not true. I think enough people here have some good ideas. Kind of excited to see if we can really
what the school is going to come up with. So.
Breakdown lines.
Who wants to go? Do you have already have something like that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you, but then.
Whoever wants to go next.
Does anyone else want to go next?
You have to recuse yourself because 50% of the team did not show up.
Okay.
Let's do one more and jump to the questions then. No one's going to volunteer.
Yeah, I mean, are you volunteering for after this?
For the next one?
Yeah.
If we have time, yes.
Yeah, all right, we'll do yours and yours and try to be quick and then we can finish up and then let's get thanks.
So the idea is called Night Brigade. On the next slide, it's got a brief summary of what that is. So the target audience is parents. You know, their lifestyle is pretty hectic, especially nowadays with kids schlepping different directions. It gets insane really quickly. So the idea is to build an app that makes it easy for them to build a network of people that know and to tap into that network to get things done efficiently. People try to do that, you know, that it takes a village idea, but it's typically very suboptimal because of the rapport. You know, you don't want people on the spot, the logistics gets complicated, and it's very time consuming to exchange text messages, and so this is trying to streamline the experience there and make it easy to get things done with people in your network. And there are other benefits to this. You know, ultimately, it can become a simple way to give and receive valuable help to build productive relationships and friendships, and which would lead to good karma and less stress. So that's kind of the spiel. So to start, the approach is to focus on a very small pilot to really test the product market fit. So there's one particular area where there are 4 private schools where most of the kids don't take school buses. So there's a lot of riding of the kids by parents, and it's very inefficient. You see car jams with 1 parent per car, and a lot of people struggling to take people everywhere they need to be, like practices and activities and whatnot. The pilot includes 1 sport club, a soccer team, 2 particular neighborhoods, and 1 university, since the idea is not only to tap into favors, goodwill and whatnot, but also paid services, babysitters, kids that have spare time to help out. So university would be the channel to go after for babysitters. The traction was pretty small, just to, again, to test the idea and see whether there's an appetite for this type of an app, so 250 users. So I talked to different folks and looked at the different channels. To start, again, it's more of a grassroots initiative to do a pilot, so the approach is to look at community building, unconventional PR, and viral marketing. Now the results column is blank as well. Community building, similar to a previous team, starting with a survey to get buy-in from some of the influential moms, getting their take onto what are the pain points, what would you want to see in an app like this, and helping them, engaging them in prototyping the app, like wireframing. I started with balsamic, put some screens together, and test a reaction. So those people involved so far have been very responsive, and they could become advocates or ambassadors to the community to get this thing going. So that's one channel that I'm thinking about. Once there's an actual product, I could see unconventional PR playing off of the theme of the brigade. It's kind of, I'm not sure about, some people, it resonates to them to go with more of a fire brigade as opposed to an army brigade. An army can be maybe a slippery slope when it comes to kids, But some moms told me they kind of like the idea of moms wearing like army hats and kids being picked up in Humvees or something like that to really get people like, what is this brigade about? And so that's one of the TBDs. Would make sense to play off of the Army Brigade theme or Fire Brigade or some other brigade. It's up in the air. Viral marketing in this community, there's a orthodontics shop where they have GMO stickers, and it's spread like, they have a pretty neat program where they see you with that sticker, they can give you free dental care for your kids, and it's spread pretty effectively with, so do something like that as well. Sharing the app with Facebook is another angle, so refer a friend as well. So that's pretty much where I am so far.
So what is your first plan for testing this? Are you going to start with this survey, or are you going to start with trying to acquire some sort of market? You're starting with moms, but some of these involve kids themselves, some of them involve neighborhoods. So are you applying these to your first set of people for private schools, one sport club? One survey for all of them, or are you doing?
I think I'm going to try to go after those different angles to see the feedback. So I'm talking to one coach for the soccer aspect. There's a local business called Next Door. They're targeting neighborhoods. I think it'd be interesting to see their, idea of a joint venture, I guess. Or so the challenge that I struggled with during the exercise is not having something to show on a landing page that people could, faking it type of a thing. And I'm not sure a lot of people Google for that type of an app, help me get things done with my friends. So I thought to really focus on engaging the community through a survey, building a prototype, and then being ready for the next phase, kind of a mini rollout of the app.
It's a very literal interpretation of what you would do next, but I think for the exercise, you would probably assume that the prototype exists, or you have some way of introducing people to the prototype, even if it's just a landing page or your balsamic mockups. 250 active users from 4 private schools, 1 sport club. So you're estimating 2,000 kids, and then maybe say another 1,500 in a university. So anywhere between 3,000 and 10 to 40,000, depending on the university, and you're going to get 250 active users out of it. So working backwards from 250 active users, how do you end up with the total top of your funnel, however many that is supposed to be? So if you take Greenville MVP pilot numbers, how many people would you say that is? If you get this in front of everyone there.
2,000 kids. I guess you did the math roughly right there. I guess back to testing, I wouldn't want to blow the load on this particular community because I think they'd be responsive. That's one of the pieces of feedback I got. People would be very, you could spread, with the moms being advocates saying, hey, this is great, you should get on this. So how would you, this is more of a question, how would you go about testing a market without kind of losing credibility because the product isn't right?
I think you're thinking of 2 different things where I am. So there's testing the market and there's testing your target audience. Testing a vertical for traction is not the same thing as figuring out who you're going to target, if that makes sense. So in one case, you're trying to tailor your product to that person, trying to tailor your messaging. So if you're targeting, if you think moms are the best case scenario for your product, that they're going to get the most value out of it, you need to test verticals in which moms exist. You already know your audience is moms, but you don't know which verticals are going to attract the most moms. That could be a PTA meeting. Hey, everybody has this problem. Why don't we all try to use this app for the next PTA meeting or for the next school dance or something? I think capturing those cases where they're actually going through the frustration is the moment where they're like, yes, please give me another solution. But I don't exactly follow how you're going to get really how any of this is representative of the total population of moms in the world. You know what I mean? So if you're working backwards from your 250 active users, you're getting them from 4 private schools, 1 sport club, 2 neighborhoods, 1 university. But is there any reason you need to get them from those channels, or do you expect that those channels are going to produce?
No, I guess I did it the other way around, where I thought, how many users do I need to have a prototype that shows there is some stickiness there? So 200 is enough to show, but compared to the size of the market, right, it's really small.
It's not. Stickiness in particular is rough because you may have 250 active users, but if it got in front of 50,000 people, maybe that's not a good number. The stickiness that you want to measure is how many people came in, again, we use different words, we'll talk the phone. Stickiness is how many people have seen your product and used it and are continuing to use it 1 month, 6 months, 2 years later. So if you have 250 active users, it doesn't mean your product is sticky. They can be dropping off like flies because they're getting a ton of exposure and they're just paying. So I would say, in your case, worrying less about where you're getting them from as opposed to how you're getting, which vertical you're getting them from. So is it the PR, is it the advertising, what is it? Where are they coming from is kind of a secondary effect. So maybe you know that advertising at a university is better than advertising in a sport club, for example. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe put up a billboard and just get everybody. All
Yeah, the other thing was the viral marketing as a traction channel. I wish Dave would put this in his book somewhere. It's like this, like it's hard to do. Viral marketing, in my opinion, is a traction channel, but it's more like one of those. It's like a freebie. If it happens, that's awesome for you. Good, that's great. But it's not very easy to predict the success or virality of something just based on like the army helmets, because they're a very cool idea. I would love one myself. If I could be a part of that in my neighborhood, that would be sweet. But it doesn't follow that because I have an army helmet, I really want to use the products. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I do think it's very cool.
Cool. Hey guys, I'm super excited to present to you guys tonight, mainly because I'm using this Surface Pro 3 Office online presentations, really sweet. I got my notes right here, but I'll try to keep it really quick. We're formerly known as Bad Company. We lost our D to midterm, so we're BACO now. So Ben, Helen, and myself, Anthony. So if you guys remember back to ideation, we presented on MedHub, which was basically an Airbnb for medical office share. We found it really agonizingly difficult to come up with traction channels for B2B. Basically when traction was negotiating agreements with institutions for office space. So we switched it to the number 2, which was Climb. If you guys haven't seen or figured out by now, really big into acronyms. So it's social media utilizing recreation profile and hub. But basically it's a climb tracker, so fitness, social network, all wrapped into an app, and then eventually moving to a wearable form. It also serves on the back end as analytics and reporting for gym management. So the traction goal is to get to the next round of funding. So for that, just on estimates, 100 grand to fund R&D for a wearable form. And living expenses and whatnot. Right now, it's just an MVP, bare bones, social media integration, some gamified content, and some personal fitness analytics. And if you notice, like 500 users will get us #1 in the marketplace right now. There's 2 competitors in beta. There's some more people coming in. It's a basically blue ocean right now, and we're trying to get there. So just doing Bullseye ranking. We see like 6 channels in our inner circle, the top 3 being viral marketing, SEO, and community building. Rounding out inner circle is sales, business development, and conventional PR. So we did a quick test. This is sort of like role playing. It was really hard to actually get out and do this in a week. I think a lot of people can understand that, but just using just some discounted number based on like the 5 million indoor climbers in Philadelphia or in the country, kind of discounting it down to Philadelphia. We came up with these numbers for the available customers in each of these traction channels, and just using standard response and conversion rates, we came up with confirmed users through those channels. Calculating $200 lifetime value for each customer gives us that lifetime value. So just real quick, so viral marketing came out on top. So as you mentioned, the viral marketing loop, for us, word of mouth is big and live demonstrations. So this app and this, eventually wearable device is going to be in indoor climbing gyms and fitness centers. People are going to see people using this. They're going to be able to, with some of our technologies in iBeacon and NFC, be able just to push that down to them, immediately, get them, using it. And then, along with our marketing and social media campaigns, Facebook, blitzes, and stuff like that.
So the numbers that you guys worked with on the other slide, where were you working backwards from? Like, what was the response rate for search engine optimization? How did you get that number?
So this is based on, I think one of the readings was the quant-based marketing. So it was like a spreadsheet that they had there, and the note at the bottom said this was like a standard response rate for SEO. So in SEO, just kind of try and use some keywords, climb training, just trying to appeal to fitness geeks, climbing geeks, people like that. We discovered, 40,000, basically hits off of that. That's discounted down from the actual total that we came up with.
So I would move over to conversion rate, because I'm jealous of those conversion rates.
Yeah, so same thing. This is off of the quant-based marketing. So again, like everyone else, we didn't have time to go out and test this. So I just used numbers based on, they had a row for SEO, and they had, I don't know if it was a rounding error or a misplaced decimal, but it said 35%. I was happy with that. As you can see, with these numbers, confirmed users 500, 420. That's, I would say that's pretty on the low end of kind of the user base we would expect from such traction channels. Is there a number that you're?
The conversion rates are obviously a little bit high from my experience, but the community building aspect of it in particular, it's weird to me that you have like a response rate for community building, which is more, it's a vertical in and of itself, but has a bunch of sub-verticals. So there's community building, like going to conferences, but just talking to people. You know what I mean? There's an interconnectivity to it. It's kind of hard to put a number behind, so I'm just wondering, if these all came from quant, that could be your answer?
It kind of did. For community building, I think we interpret it more as online community building. So, Reddit R climbing, or there's certain climbing-based websites, forums out there, mountainproject.com.
Yeah.
And also a site that we have as well. Trying to build that community in Philadelphia.
And so you had mentioned there are two other competitors, but none of them have more than 500 users.
Sure. So they're both in beta right now. There are not a lot of numbers in terms of what their confirmed users are. Just going back to that slide. Yeah. So that more lined up with sort of the numbers we got out of our #1 traction channel of our marketing.
It's interesting. I mean, as a traction goal, to say we're #1 in the market is a traction. It's for the purpose of social proof, so that you can say to your customers, "Hey, we're the #1
totally
climbing app in the world, or climbing wearable." But as a traction goal, I think I've asked every single person here this: why did you choose 500? Just so that you could be the first, or that's going to help you get to a round of funding?
Absolutely. So, I mean, if the goal is to get the next round of funding, and then 100 grand is that round where we need to kind of continue going forward to maintain momentum. Being able to say you're #1 right now, I think would mean a lot towards that. That's my interpretation of it. I might be incorrect.
Okay, so my general advice there would be, it's not so much, so when the traction trumps everything argument of getting funding, it's really easy to get funding when you have a lot of traction. It's a good signal to be #1 in the market, but it's a better signal to see consistent and continued growth. So if you had 500 users, but you're kind of stifled because that's how many people that rock climb, that would love a wearable, that are capable of using it, that have learned about it, and that fall through all those cracks and they land up with your product. If 500 is the max, you might have a hard time getting $100,000 of funding. So a good piece of advice would be to go check out what those people are doing absolutely wrong. Where they're marketing, and you can set up alerts, like Google alerts or any type of Topsy alerts, to say, hey, this is a new piece of content produced by them. I've got an alert for it. I'm going to see how many people liked it on Facebook. I'm going to see how many shares are gone, or if it was re-syndicated in Business Insider. So keep an eye on them, definitely. The other thing, and this goes for everybody, because I love saying this, funding should not be a goal. Funding sucks. As soon as you get funding, everything just changes. Like, when you get funding, you no longer are running your company. You're having about whatever the percentage value you have left in your company's fund, that's how much you're having left. You are then responsible to a bunch of people on the board of directors and those people that want 10 times that money back in usually 5 to 10 years. But that's a lot. It's a lot. I wouldn't think too much about funding as a goal. Traction as a goal is a much better indicator of when you're going to be ready for funding, because you cannot expand into another traction vertical without money. We saturated every single thing on our inner bullseye and outer bullseye. Now we're left with things that we can't explore without funding. We've had this astronomical growth. Now it is time to get funding. But the goal of getting funding, I think it should be separate from the goal of getting traction.
So to that point, I think the homework stated, what is your traction goal? Could we get some clarification on, how to answer that question?
Yeah, so it depends for each company, but in terms of what we're trying to push at is figuring out what you need, wherever you're setting a goal. What I like to say, like kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, is not getting funding is what you want, not what you need. Separating those differences is basically like life lessons are like the hardest things to do anyway. But getting it down to be a quantifiable number in terms of your goal is just to look at where you are in the market, then what verticals you need. So if you're only trying to get 100 people to talk to, then that vertical might make sense, and then you can work from there. But if you need to get to 10,000 people, because that's where your goal should be, and that vertical only has 5,000 people in it, and you're not going to get there. So that was just to set the goal in terms of where you need to go.
Okay. So,
but the big question mark for every team of what you need.
Did you have something? No. So you guys we had like a prioritization, I think, or no? I think the last tab of the spreadsheet was where you had us calculate these numbers. So can you explain a little bit like lifetime value then? So basically, for me it was like these numbers kind of matched up, but saying if we expect 100,000 lifetime value out of this traction channel from 500 confirmed users, then would 500 confirmed users be the traction goal, or
that assumes that your goal is a monetary goal. Like we need $100,000, and to get $100,000, we know we need 500 people because they're going to spend X amount of dollars to get us there. What we're getting at is, you're the only person that knows how many users you guys need to get to stage 2, and then from stage 2 to stage 3, stage 3 to stage 4. The reason that the Bullseye framework works probably best for this is that you are only doing the things that are the highest priority and have the highest chance of success with your limited resources. So if you said right now with absolutely no money in your pocket, you had to go get 10 people to buy my shoes, and you had one pair of them, I would say 10 people is the arbitrary number that I make up. That's my traction number. I made it. But if you said, hey, you need to go find 100 people to go buy his shoes, because after 100 people, we know that 1,000 people are going to buy our second version of these shoes. That means, hey, my traction vertical should be 100 so that I can then expand it to 1,000. Does that make sense? It's like, how much can you saturate a traction vertical before you have to move to the next best thing? So in this case, viral marketing obviously has the highest lifetime value. It's kind of weird because lifetime value could be 20 years, it could be one purchase.
So it just happened that it worked out to the 100K that maybe I should have made that number. Yeah, maybe I should have made that number different.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much. It seems like there's this thing on funding. you're working backwards from the funding number to be like, okay, this is what we need for our runway. But that doesn't mean that you getting those users right now locks in that money for the future. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't.
Think of it more like the spread of a viral video. And this applies to all attraction channels, not just the viral video. You watch a YouTube video and you think it's cool. And you send it to your friend who thinks it's cool, and now you're both sending it to multiple friends and it spreads exponentially. That initial action of you sending it to your friend and her sending it to the other people starts that viral spread. It starts your traction. It starts your traction penetration, where you say, hey, my first $1,000 was best spent on SEO and on blogging and on conferences. And that $1,000 netted me, 50 users. Now I know that with my next and last $1,000, I can either go get another 50 users through those same traction verticals, I can try another traction vertical, or I can try a worse traction vertical, or I can try another traction vertical. So you need to go through all of them to say, okay, this is the one that worked out best for me. Because say it's a $100 test. All these $100 tests, the SEO, the blogging, and the conferences work best. That's the thing I'm going to pour all my money into until all of those users, until it's a parabolic, until it's an asymptotic return. So you say, okay, I'm now not getting any new users out of attending FOSSCon, which is always adventure forward. So you say, okay, well, we're going to stop sponsoring FOSSCon because we're not getting anything out of it. Now we're going to take that money and move it somewhere else. We're now the second stage of our, vertical testing. So don't think about it as money. Think about it as getting to the next stage. Think of it only in terms of users and the number of users that you need to get more users, or the number of users that you need to get more product to get more users. Make sense? Is there going to be a question on that in particular? I feel like it's
it also, something, one of the things that isn't emphasized here is you get users, and then you get users to get more users, but don't you need to focus on keeping the first set of users?
Yeah. The retention is a huge thing. That was the stickiness.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody earlier, and there's I don't think in the last 3 years at DuckDuckGo I've spent more than 5 minutes trying to get better conversion rates from landing pages. Those things are like optimizing like single-digit percentages, and at this point you guys need to be thinking about hundreds of percentages. That's kind of the difference. Where you're saying, hey, these people are all falling off. They're either falling off because my product sucks, I'm targeting wrong people, my landing page is terrible, that's not converting, or what we're getting at today is that vertical is just not working for me. I'm selling a thing that's perfect for people who are veterans, but I'm trying to sell it to middle school teachers, to document their day or something. It's like not that exciting of it is. But that's the case. You want to work back from the numbers of people, not what they net you in cash. It will be a lot easier to think about.
Cool. So, any overarching viewing thoughts?
Yeah, sweet. I like to hear the question because I consider my history to be super unconventional. When I was in college, I started an undie run. I like to consider that my first entrepreneurial endeavor, where I saw it on TV. This guy had a charity that he started, University of Phoenix or something. I guess that's online. And he had people show up to a 5K race, take off their clothes down to their underwear, donate their clothes on the spot, and they all ran off for this thing. I was like, that's pretty cool. I don't know, maybe it'll help me meet people or something in college. I'll try it. So I spent like 3 months working with school to get all these approvals and renting this park and working with this charity to do this thing. And it all, in the end, completely fell apart. And the week before we were supposed to have it, the university canceled the venue and said, sorry, you're SOL. So then I immediately went to a branch campus of that university and said, hey, would you guys like to do it? Yeah. So a week later, I drove 6 hours, hosted this thing. The news came, it was really cool. I had like this really fun experience of wanting to do something and then actually doing it. And like, it got press, you know what I mean? It was like the Erie, Pennsylvania local news, but it was cool. Like, I liked it a lot. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I saw something on TV. It's definitely, something I can replicate. So at the time, I was in school for finance, and I probably wouldn't go back and change that, but I'm not ever going to do finance again. So when I graduated from school, I got a job in finance around here, and it took me like 6 months for me to hate my life.
I'm just not a quant person. So I didn't like the 9 to 5. I didn't understand what it was for people to come home at 5 o'clock and then spend like 7 hours doing nothing and then go to bed and wake up and do the same thing. And I also didn't understand how people do that all day and then they spend those 7 hours complaining about what they did for the first 8. Like, it's the weirdest thing. So I'm like, I'm not gonna spend, the rest of my life doing a job that I hate. I had that thing that I did in college with the undue run, I'll probably do something. So I tried a bunch of different things, and like I'm happy to talk about any of them because they were all not major failures, but some of them worked. I tried to make a porn website. I tried to sell, sell and place gumball machines. So that I had this like racket. I was gonna get candy manners. It was awesome. It's like 1 hour a week, 2 weekends a month. It's like the Army Reserve. So I had these few ideas, and one of them that I landed on after doing all of these things, buying some domain names, all of that stuff, I settled on sort of a more structured approach to think about what I could do. I sat down, I said, this is how much money I have, how much time I can spend on doing something, what should I do? And those were my only parameters. Money I have, how much time? And I said to myself, okay, what's something that I can do super cheaply? And I didn't have an answer for that. How do you start a business super cheaply? You don't know, right? It's just something happens. Well, one day I was driving in King of Prussia and I saw a guy in the back what looked like a lawnmower, but he was riding in the parking lot. I said, oh my God, he's painting the parking lot lines. I was like, I'd never seen anybody do that before ever. I always thought they did it like by hand or some major truck came in, and I was like, oh wow, it's kind of weird that if I've never seen anybody do that in my many years of existence, it's probably not a whole lot of competition. That guy's really nice, and he's sitting down, and he's been there for hours. It's probably pretty easy to do too. So I went and looked into it, and I actually called a guy in Pittsburgh called Comsack Line Painting, who's like the biggest one in Pittsburgh, and I'm an affiliate at this point. So I said, hey, just kind of curious about that business in general, and sure enough, like for the next 4 hours, the guy was telling me the most minute details of all this competition, and like how much he's paying, and how much he's charging people. It was awesome, the best phone call I've ever made. So I figured it out like 2 days later, and I was like, cool. I could start a parking lot line painting company for like the low price of $1,500. So I bought a machine off of Craigslist after searching like on all Craigs for like the national thing. A super crappy machine. It was like probably a Cold War era line painting machine. And I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know what materials it took. So I went to Sherwin-Williams. I asked them because they have this huge industrial line painting division. And then I kept talking to that guy. So long story short, I get to this point where I have this line painting machine in my basement, and I have a website that has actually more content on it because I have my business, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I actually don't know how to start the machine. I haven't. So I went to a website called Parking Lot Planet, which is like the biggest forum for parking lot line painters. It's so active too. It's the funniest thing. Like, hey, that's a great community. I love it. But they have all these answers there, and I started engaging those people and like asking them, hey, like what should I do? What goes in the machine? Like what do I do? And it was super simple. I mean, it's really super simple. You put the paint in the bucket and you pull the thing, and it starts like a lawnmower. And you squeeze the handle of paint, and it goes straight by itself. So I was set up. I was like, awesome. I have this thing. Now I need customers because I have a machine that doesn't do anything. So where it gets interesting is right when I'm at this point, we took out, at the time, I don't know if they still do this, we had AdWords credits, because they work at DuckDuckGo now, so we don't do that, but at the time, they would give you $75 of free AdWords for every Google account that you had, so I just set up like 150 Google accounts and get them all together and have like unlimited funds for AdWords accounts, and I realized pretty early on that like that blue-collar industry doesn't do well in SEO, and so literally within 3 days, I had DuckDuckGo. I had A1 line painting at the top of Philadelphia, any Philadelphia line painting, sort of line striping, line painting, all of them. They just weren't competing. I was putting good content on the site, even though I didn't have like, pictures of my work. I had all this stuff on there, it looked really good. And then cut to like a week later, I get a call from the Philadelphia International Airport. Like, are you guys local? I was like, yeah, I'm local. It's like, we need somebody, like, that's awesome. We need somebody to do the runway. That, within a week, I had like this guy. I don't have any business yet, but it was a $3.5 million bid, and I did put that bid in too. I spent the whole week figuring it out. For a variety of reasons, I couldn't do it because of legal implications. But if I had the $450,000 truck that I needed, I could have done it. It was like a thing that you put down like 8 gallons of paint per second with 11 men. But anyways, like I was there. It was clearly visible to the people that needed lines painted. So the business kind of came in. Every day I was getting a phone call while I was working at SEI in finance, like, you know, I was like, can't wait to leave, so I go paint lines. But it was better than that, trust me. I loved the line painting. And at this time, it was pretty early on, I was working until like 5 or 6, and then towards the end of the month at 7 or 8, then I'd come home, I would grab a hoagie, I would go do line painting stuff until like 4 in the morning, and then I would come back, sleep for 3 hours, and I did that like forever. And this is like my example when I speak to kids that are in like college, and like you are up against people like me. Like I will sacrifice all of my health if it means that I don't have to do something later on. Like, you know, set myself up now and have some sort of success. So I was doing this. And then I got a call from a guy in downtown Philadelphia right before some game, I think it was a Phillies game, who wanted an X in front of his driveway because people kept parking in front of his little outlet onto the Philly road. And I was like, oh cool, you know, that'll take like 20 minutes, it's just an X. He's like, really? That's funny because I called 4 other line painting companies in eastern Pennsylvania, and none of them have called me back. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I mean, I can kind of get it because at like the current pricing, it would be $10 of like paint. You'd have to charge the guy plus labor, so it'd make like $50, but I'd have to drive the whole way into Philly from the suburbs and come back. But that kept up, and I was getting like 2 of those a day, and I realized that all of these jackasses around here were ignoring all of the jobs that were under like $2,000. And so I started doing them, and I was going into the city and, you know, raising how much I'm charging for it to the point where I'm going out for like $400 to paint a line that takes me 20 minutes. But there's so much demand for it, and those people are literally not calling them back. And that was the going rate. I could single-handedly set the price for line painting in the city of Philadelphia. One man, one machine. It was fine. I mean, I wouldn't do that today. I have way more morals than that now. But it was cool as like my first entrepreneurial experiment. So that was actually a huge thing for me, was to get all these micro opportunities that other people were ignoring. And it led to one of the guys that I painted. He worked with a major real estate person, Ben Swanger, something like that. It led to a major deal with them, where all of a sudden I'm doing like all of these facilities that they have, like office retail facilities that are, you know, thousands and thousands of spaces, like casino and King of Prussia, I mean everything. My very, very, very first job that I ever got was Bryn Mawr College, and I got that because it's another traction thing that I did. Right when we launched, around the same time we were doing the SEO, I was telling somebody else this Vistaprint was getting super popular at the time, and they had like crazy discounts then, like they have now, where you get like 1 million business cards for 50 cents. But this one was for postcards, and it was around the holiday season, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go on there, get like 1,000 postcards for $50, and I put free appraisals on them, and I put now serving the Philadelphia area, because it's true. Even though I was never anywhere else, I'm now serving the Philadelphia area, and I do get free appraisals. So I wrote this little web scraper that would pull addresses for any business like that fell into a 20-mile radius, and had labels printed with all the addresses, took the postcards, put the labels on them for like 3 hours, and I sent them out. So if I sent 1,000 postcards, I probably got 200 back for being a dead address. But then people started calling, and they're asking about these free appraisals, and now they're going to the website, and there's this whole loop that really makes it look like me, who had just graduated from college like 6 months earlier, had this booming line painting business where at the top of Google results, or the top of Yahoo results. You have these postcards that people are getting in the mail, and kind of like set this thing up. And that was about the time those things were like peaking, that I decided to add like 2 more things to my plate. And I joined the board of directors downtown at Philly Spells. It's a nonprofit for kids that does writing tutoring. So that was eating up a bunch of my time, and then I started consulting for DuckDuckGo also. So my schedule changed, where I was working for DuckDuckGo from 6 to midnight, and then going out at midnight and painting. And like this was but that was the very first, the line painting piece was the very first thing that I did. I did that until I joined DuckDuckGo full time, and then I sold it. It's still alive, I'm pretty sure. That opportunity still exists in a ton of other markets. I consider myself not the unconventional entrepreneur guy, but just, I was willing to do whatever it was. Whether that was, okay, I'm gonna do a line painting company, or a porn website, whatever it was, I was like, I just want to do something. I don't feel like a waste who sits on his ass all day after 5. So I think I see a lot of that today, and you guys all have, that same urge to make something really cool. It's been great talking to you guys. Does anybody have any questions?
So clearly, everyone seems to think viral marketing is a viable channel, and you're basically we're saying after we spoke that it's not what we think it is.
No, I mean it's a totally viable channel. It works when you're doing viral marketing. It's working. But doing viral marketing it's like saying, I'm going to have this is going to be a super successful surgery and like 100%. You can't. I mean, you just don't know what's going to work and what's not. There are things like the viral coefficient, figuring out the virality of the product that help, where you say, okay, well, it takes a really long time to get into my product, and it takes a really long time for somebody to recommend it, and it takes a really long time for them to come back and start using it. That's not going to be a viral thing. That's not going to be a viral video. It's not going to be a viral product. Shortening that entire process is the best thing, but to say, hey, my viral marketing campaign is this awesome video with a bunch of kids with brigade hats on, this doesn't mean that people are going to share that virally. It's just your attempt at a viral campaign. So when you're working with numbers that are viral marketing numbers, working with the best case scenario. So what you have to do is say, okay, let's see a good example, Dollar Shave Club. Dollar Shave Club had a video with guys in the warehouse, and it's a really kind of funny, Old Spicy type commercial for men's razor blades. It was a very popular commercial because it was viral. You could say, okay, that's a perfect example of some sort of product startup who made a viral video. It got roughly, call it 5 million views in like a month, and they put maybe $20,000 into production. So I'm going to work backwards from that and say, of those 5 million views, how many people did they convert into actual users? Probably a decent amount. But that is the part that applies to you as entrepreneurs. Not the part where it's like everybody's seeing my product, but when they're seeing it, is it actually doing anything for you? So you can have this awesome viral marketing campaign that absolutely does nothing for you. It's either not associated with the brand enough, it doesn't bring them back to your product page at all. It's just a really cool video, and that's a great way to do mind share campaigns. But it's not a great way to attract users. So say there was a DuckDuckGo campaign where we said, hey, everybody go have a search party. Search party is normally like this connotation of going to look for someone that's missing, but we did it in the way that everybody get together and start talking and using DuckDuckGo in a room. In the case that people assume we mean search party, like going to look for somebody, that might be viral and somebody's going to go off and do that. And it's like, do the DuckDuckGo search campaign or the search party challenge. I don't know, but it doesn't do anything for us unless somebody says, hey, they're a search engine, by the way. It's not a thing, it's like the ALS challenge. There's a whole thing to it. So, I don't know, it's not a predictable thing. You wouldn't say, I'm going to put $500,000 into a Timbaland video that's hopefully going to go viral because the numbers are there. You know what I mean? The case of something being viral, you would start from the case where the viral campaign is successful and going forward. Not saying, okay, I have $0 cash, I'm going to try to do a viral marketing campaign, because you don't know how much it's going to cost you for it to be viral. Does that make sense? Can I clarify that for everybody?
What you spoke to earlier is the math on the timing. There's a David Scott. I don't know if there's if you Google viral DuckDuckGo viral coefficient, you can get like the whole spreadsheet. How much time makes the difference in the cycle? It is incredibly hard to do. Like YouTube is the prime example because they were sharing their product and it's really quick. So they were able to take off because their product was the shareable thing. And to share was so easy, and the person who engaged and watched was so easy, and then share again. So look at the viral coefficient, I'm pretty sure it's David Scott. Yes, that's like a mathematical spreadsheet breakdown. So you can enter how many people are coming in, how many people are converting, when they recommend it to someone, how long does it take for that next person to get in, and you can see the whole math how it works out for you guys?
The numbers are what he said, staggering. It's like you triple the amount of people you put through the top of the funnel, and still doesn't do nearly as much as if you decrease the cycle time by like 10%. It's really crazy. I didn't think it worked like that, but it really does. Does it help? I feel like I didn't answer your question.
No, it's helpful. I think what I was thinking when we were talking about viral marketing was just like creating some way of connecting really strongly with our target customers so that they would really feel engaged. So maybe that's not the right channel, like.
I think you're thinking about it in the right way. I would actually apply that to everything you're doing. That it should feel like it's coming from the core user, not from the company. You know what I mean? The dollar shave example is a good thing. It's a good example to use because those people that were into getting discount razor blades, kind of a younger crowd, they're internet savvy, they're into like bundling deals. There was a good crowd for them. Their market, their coefficient was probably pretty good. Their cycle time probably wasn't. You have to go from TV commercial to your computer to buying them and then receiving them like a week later and then using them and then realizing that they're probably the same razor blades and then you recommend it to your friend and then it happens. The video was a lot more viral than the actual product. So in that case, that video, people were sharing that video like crazy. It was fun and people were watching it. But when you actually break it down to the numbers of how many people were buying razor blades and then going to recommending it to their friends, it probably wasn't that good. Does that help clarify? Other questions?
Can you speak about how you got involved in DuckDuckGo, your role, and your efforts to share best practice?
So when I was doing the line painting company and it was scaling pretty quickly, and they know what I was doing, so I don't think I still but I had seen a Philly article, I can't remember, it was something, Philly Mag maybe, that mentioned this search engine that was being run by one guy out of Valley Forge. And I had just moved here, and I was like, oh wow, I live in King of Prussia, I'm pretty sure that's close to Valley Forge. And I went to this website, and I was like, okay, DuckDuckGo, this is cool, like privacy, and it's run by this guy who calls himself Yay, which is like his handle. So I sent him an email just saying, hey, I'm in the area, I have this startup, I don't know what I'm doing. Also, I love the product, here's some feedback. I basically just said, hey, you look like you know what you're doing, and I don't. And also, good stuff you're making. And that actually just started an email chain that kept up for like years, like a year. So like 6 months after that, I went for lunch. And I remember because I was like 3 hours, I stayed out at lunch at SEI for like 3 hours talking to Gabe. And then I told them that my sister locked herself out of her house miles away. And then I came to work super late and I felt awesome. I was trying to talk to Gabe for a really long time. He gave me all this great advice. And what I was looking for at the time was whether or not I should franchise it, that I could, is the name enough for me to say, hey, I've got this really refined process and I've got this really kind of a brand, but I've got a setup that works for young entrepreneurs. If there's some kid in college who wants to start an A1 line painting in Notre Dame or something. Good. So I went through this whole process with him for like a year. I really didn't like where it was headed. I wasn't super about traveling at the time or like leaving to go set up these little factions of line painting. And about the year mark after that, I saw that DuckDuckGo got funding from Union Square Ventures. I thought to myself, wow, that's like awesome. I loved Union Square Ventures at the time. I was not super into startups, especially tech startups. But I knew who Union Square Ventures was, and I knew what that meant for the company. So I sent him an email and I said, hey, just noticed you got funding. You guys are going to be expanding. If I can help in any way, let me know, because I know it's just a huge. He's like, no, I'm good, thanks. It's obviously gone pretty well. And it was like a month later, and I'm still interacting with him. Like I didn't care whether or not I helped him. But he said, hey, now I do need help. Do you have any free time? And like an idiot, I was like, yeah, lots of free time. And I came on as a consultant doing like feedback. I was answering people's feedback because I didn't have time to get to it anymore. And if you guys heard us speak last week, you probably spend 50% of your time on traction. That's really how it was. He was to the point where he's like, I've got to do some engineering things. I need somebody to do the traction community, non-technical pieces of it. So I started doing it, and I was just land grabbing more and more every day, to the point that I even noticed it was taking over body line painting thing, which as entrepreneurs I would tell you not to do. Don't take on something else when you're already doing well at something. You're gonna have to make a choice. But 6 months later, after I'm still contracting, he offered me a full-time position. So we don't have anybody non-technical, we need marketing, community, business development pieces done. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. No any of those. But he's an awesome mentor, and I knew that he wasn't going to he wasn't expecting out of me more than I could give him. And he was expecting, the only thing he expects of me or anybody on the team is that we're not going to be doing the same thing this year or next year. That there is personal growth and that you're actually aspiring towards a larger career, like developing your own knowledge base. So I started doing feedback, and now I do everything else. I lead the community team, so DuckDuckGo is our community platform. I lead all of our open source development, marketing, organic relevancy, so not the instant answers, but the actual results, spam, business development integrations, so like if somebody wants to link their API to DuckDuckGo through DuckDuckHack.com, then I have to reach out to them special API links, special package. So it's pretty much everything. It's still a lot of BS. We're still just small enough that I don't have anybody to help me do things that are probably, that would, if I shave 20% of my day, I would take these little mini tasks that would help me focus on the major things, critical path. And we're just now at the point where that's like something that I can consider, is finding somebody to take over, I guess, things that are distracting me, that are not my center of my result. Other questions? Anybody?
Did you really do your job at SCI for years on 3 hours of sleep?
Not years on 3 hours of sleep. I did my job at SCI for 2 years, but I was only sleeping 3 hours for like 6 or 7 months.
I mean, you're working with, client data, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Were you screwing up left and right?
So it's funny, so there's a statistics-based job where they measure your output and your accuracy, and mine was literally the highest for the entire time that I was there. And they told me, this is why I'm such an advocate of startups. Towards the end of my tenure at SEI, this statistics-based job that I had was basically setting up assets. So if you wanted to buy a stock or a bond, it has to be on your bank system for you to buy it, and I have to be the one that goes to Bloomberg, and it's like, yeah, it's the coupon rate is 3.5%, and matures in 1999, that's what you've done. I put that all on your database, and that's my job. And eventually, like, my stats were so high, and you can tell I was, I had this finance degree, and clearly I wanted to do not what is glorified being an entry. But in the financial world, when we big company, it's sort of a slow moving cogwheel. So they're like, look, we don't want you to get bored here, you're obviously a super performer, so here's what we're going to do. You get to work on any project that you want to work on that's this project. And we're going to pay you nothing else to do it. So I started learning on VBA at the time, so I could write some stupid program to replace myself, which I did. Like, I handed it to him, and then I was like, I'm leaving. Like, I'm done with this. I'm going to work for this search engine you've never heard of. And it was, what is it? It was funny at the time, now it's hilarious to me. But yeah, it wasn't. I would never advise that somebody do something that's detrimental to the secure income that they have, even if it means progressing your startup. Until the point, I think the common advice is when something's eating 50%, when you're at the 50-50 level, where you're spending 50% of your time on your normal job, 50% of your time on your startup. If 10% the other way would help you more than 10% the opposite way, meaning if you gave an extra 10% to your startup and it netted you, 50% increase in sales or conversions or whatever it is, if that is starting to be the case, that's when you have to make that flip. I was never really there until I had a clear sign that they told me to hire me. But yeah, it wasn't detrimental. I said this to somebody the other day, I just hired somebody. I used to wake up every morning and it felt like somebody was strangling me in my sleep just because I hated the mornings. I was like, no, I'm not a morning person, I'm not a member of the 6 a.m. club, I can't do that. I'm a night owl, I'm up at the wackiest hours. But somebody said to me that, if you start getting into this routine of doing the same thing every day and waking up, it's a lot easier. That never happened. We woke up at the exact same time for years, it never worked. The one thing that changed was when I realized I was working on my own project, I was waking up to do line painting on Saturday at 4 in the morning, or, you know, go work at DuckDuckGo even after that started. I like actually woke up. I didn't, you know what I mean? When my alarm went off, I wasn't like, oh God, like, what's the next 9, what's 9 hours from now? And how much can I look forward to that? It's really finding that motivation when you wake up to do something that is, I think that's why the sleep really is most. Believe that? That's why I don't know if it works. Who's got questions? Anybody else?